Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tarass Leočko, and I'm Senior Investment Advisor at the Investment Development Agency of Latvia. And today I will present our country, Latvia, as the heart of the new Nordics. Since we have only 20 minutes for the presentation, I will start off with the first slide. I believe that most of you haven't been in Latvia, so I'll start with the location. We're basically located between the Northern and Eastern Europe. And according to the UN classification, and from my perspective, our business ethics and culture is still closer to the Northern Europe. That is why we promote and call ourselves the heart of the new Nordics. We have around 2 million people here, but the territory is still relatively big because we're larger than countries like Belgium or Croatia or other European countries. Our currency is euro because we have joined the EU back in 2004. Also, we're members of NATO and the OECD. One of our biggest advantages is obviously the location, because we are on the intersection of Eastern and Northern Europe, as well as the Central and Europe and Russia, Belarus and Ukraine. And the key advantage of Latvia and the capital city Riga is actually the airport. We have the biggest airport in the region among Baltic countries. Before the pandemic, we have served around half of all passengers. We also have our national airline called Air Baltic, that is the most functional airline in Europe. And during the high season before the pandemic, we had more than 100 direct flights, and it was quite easy to reach any capital in Europe within 2.5 to 3 hours. What is also important nowadays is that we're developing a new high-speed railway system, the project called Rail Baltica. It will connect all 3 Baltic capitals, and it will be easy to travel from the Baltics and from Latvia all the way to Poland and Germany. And for instance, the trip from Riga to Warsaw will take only 5 hours. There'll be also a track leading from the central station in Riga to the airport, and it will take only 8 minutes. So in terms of connectivity and accessibility, we're definitely one of the best countries, and especially Riga is one of the best capitals in Northern and Eastern Europe. What is important for business and logistics is, of course, the roads that we have. And as I have mentioned in the beginning, we are basically on the crossroads of the Northern and Eastern Europe. And if we look at the new Silk Road project and the railway networks around the world, then you can see that it's actually easy to bring all the necessary goods and raw materials all the way from Asia, starting from China or Japan and up to Latvia through Russia or Kazakhstan. There are also sea roads that are going through Southern Asia, Africa, Southern Europe, and then goes up to the Western Europe and the Baltic Sea. So Latvia is a country that is next to the Baltic, that is located next to the Baltic Sea, and we have 3 major seaports that are not freezing during the winter. So the main port is in the capital city Riga, but then on the west coast we have also 2 cities, Ventspils and Liepāja, that also have pretty well-equipped and developed seaports with very good connection with Germany and Sweden. Talking about the foreign direct investments in Latvia, so historically they were always growing, and our total FDI stock is close to 17 billion euros. Traditionally, the main investors were from the region and neighboring countries like Sweden, Estonia, Russia, also quite a lot from Netherlands and Cyprus. We had one of the fastest growing GDP rate before the pandemic in the European Union, and in 2018 it reached even 4.3%. Of course, during the pandemic it declined, and we had 3.6% loss, but we expect that we'll recover pretty soon, even this year and obviously next year as well. An interesting point that actually Latvian economy is very export oriented, and we had even the growth of exporting of goods in 2020, and it grew by 1.7%. If we look into the main goods and services and geography of exports and imports, then traditionally the main export markets were also neighbors like Russia, Estonia, Lithuania, but also Sweden and Germany has kind of a strong ties with our market. And the main export goods traditionally were and still are agriculture and food, wood, machinery and equipment, metal, and some of the machinery that is produced, including electronics, and especially these kind of goods, having a larger portion of the total exports during the last few years. Kind of the same pattern as for import markets. The main players, let's say, are coming from Lithuania, Germany, Poland, Estonia, and Russia. And we import machinery and different kind of electronics and equipment, food products, obviously vehicles, some chemicals and fuels and other raw materials. Our exporting value is growing, and as I have discussed in the previous slide, actually the export of goods increased during last year despite the pandemic. What are the key advantages and benefits of investing and doing business in Latvia? I would say that companies can feel safe here because we have stable political situation and we have equal rights, both for local investors and foreign investors. Since we are in the European Union, the OECD, all the international regulations and laws apply here in Latvia. So it's pretty easy actually to register a company. You can do it within 1 to 3 days, and you can actually get an e-signature and then manage your company remotely. So foreign investors can also apply for residence permit or own a company, obviously. And also we have different kind of associations and councils that unite foreign investors, and where you can discuss some initiatives or your needs and directly communicate with the government of Latvia. We're proud to be very technologically advanced, innovative, and digital. Actually, we're also very diverse. For example, we have the largest share of female managers in the European Union. Around 56% of managers are women in Latvian companies. This year, we were also recognized as the most startup-friendly country in the world, according to the Index Ventures. We're developing our e-government, and we are number 4 in the EU. Also, in terms of doing business, we're still in top 20, so number 19. It's way much easier to do business than in some other big European countries, for example, like Poland or Germany. And as I have mentioned, e-signature or e-ID gives an opportunity to access electronically all the government services and also manage your company remotely. Our tax policy is very competitive. We are one of those few countries in the world that has 0% corporate income tax on reinvested profits. So basically, if you do not distribute dividends, you don't pay corporate income tax, and tax on dividends is 20%. According to the OECD, we are number 2 in tax competitiveness among OECD countries. And the tax rates are kind of similar to other tax regimes that you can find in Eastern Europe. And it's definitely a slightly lower rate than in Northern Europe. And it's still quite easy to manage your taxes here in Latvia. We're number 16 globally in ease of paying taxes. So we have a broad range of different kind of business incentives for companies. We would kind of divide it in 5 major groups. So it's first it's idea development, then it's for business and innovations, exports, and then special economic zones that we have around Latvia with special tax rebates up to 80% on corporate income tax and real estate tax. Also, we have a range of COVID-19 recovery mechanisms and incentives that help companies here in Latvia to recover after crisis and sometimes even to survive. And one more important feature of Latvia and why local companies, international companies cherish our environment is our talent pool. We are well educated and companies have access to around 80,000 students. About a quarter of these students are STEM students and 26,000 people are related to social sciences, business and law. We also have the highest portion of international students in the Baltics, around 30% are mobile students. We're also proud to be very multilingual. This is pretty rare for, let's say, for Europe, because basically historically, when Latvia was part of the Soviet Union, a lot of people had to learn foreign language. So we have our own official language, Latvian language, but basically everybody knows at least one foreign language, either English or Russian, but more than half of population basically speaks in 3 languages. It's Latvian, English, and Russian. German language is also quite widespread. A bit of French, Spanish, and Italian also is quite common, especially among young students. And because of this advantage, we actually have a great cultural fit. We have a lot of nationalities and actually 38% of population represented by minorities. So it's quite easy for us to find a common language with different nationalities and different people with different backgrounds. And obviously, we're still very competitive in terms of costs if you compare to Western and Northern Europe. We have a well-educated labor force that can produce a lot of value added, and still the operating costs will be way much lower than in other European Union countries. One more initiative that we have launched recently is the Fast Track Green Channel for high priority projects. Basically, the idea is to cut a lot of bureaucratic procedures by 2 times. Let's say the timeline will be cut twice. So there are 4 main criteria, and the project should meet at least 3 of them. So it should be 5 million of investments, or either at least 50 workplaces created. The export value should be over 3 million euros. And R&D or investment in employee training should be at least 250,000 euros. We actually have a co-financing with up to 200,000 euros for employee training. The co-financing intensity is up to 50 to 60%. So it's another support mechanisms that can be used by the company that is entering Latvia and registering a legal entity in Latvia. Also, this will be relevant for those companies that are planning to develop some kind of real estate property for their needs, or some industrial premises. Although we have plenty of projects, but those real estate developers can apply for this fast track and actually get all the permits twice faster than usual. Talking about the key industries, I have already mentioned when I was talking about imports and exports, and obviously we have some traditional sectors and industries that were strong historically, like food processing, woodworking, logistics, metalworking, but now we're also moving into a new direction of pushing and adding more innovative industries like life science, ICT, smart city, biomedicine, and smart materials and photonics, and of course, green technology. And we call these sectors 5 smart sectors that are actually building kind of an ecosystem around themselves. they're trying to form synergies between academia, industry, and the government. And our organization, LEA, is also actively participating in this strategy, because we have a technological department at the Investment Development Agency of Latvia. We have technological scouts that are working closely with universities and higher education institutions, and we're building up this network in order to push this five smart sectors that are biomedicine, bioeconomy, smart energy, smart materials, photonics, and ICT. And briefly about all of these sectors, biomedicine is very close to life science, and historically it was also very strong in Latvia. Basically, we are the leaders in the Baltic states in this industry. We have the second largest biobank among EU Genomics Alliance members. We also have 1,000 companies that are exporting 83% of chemicals and pharmaceuticals, and around 30,000 employees that are employed in these companies. So we have kind of the largest share in the Baltics in terms of employment in this industry. And this manufacturing factor is also very important, because biomedicine stands on the 4th place in terms of turnover among manufacturing industries. The next is bioeconomy, that is traditionally represented by wood industry, and we're proud to be one of the most forested countries in Europe, and one of the most greenest country in Europe, because half of our territory is covered with forests. Around 40,000 employees are employed in this woodworking sector, and it's actually a very important exporting industry still in Latvia, even nowadays. Closely related is smart energy. We're also green not because of the forest, but we have one of the lowest CO2 emissions in the EU. We're having one of the largest share of hydroelectric power produced in the country, so we're second in the EU. This industry is very promising, and we already have reached great results in terms of the share of green technology and renewable energy consumption in the economy, but still there is a place for growth, and there are new renewable energy projects coming up. Moreover, we also have different kind of startups and active members of green tech cluster. So we believe this industry has a lot of opportunities both for local companies and foreign investors. Another sector that is very promising is actually related to photonics and smart materials. And since we have a quarter of students that are in STEM, then it will be possible to build up a very strong sector that is actually building around some institutions like a Solid State Physics Institute, that is one of the best scientific institutes in the Baltics. There is growing number of investments in this industry, and it's a very export-oriented industry, since very kind of a limited amount of companies is already exporting around 90 million of euros. The value of their exports is reaching 90 million euros already. So we're leaders in optical fiber production, and we believe that we will continue to be one of the regional leaders in this new smart industry. Finally, ICT is obviously a must-have industry in each country, and we see that this segment is growing as well. We have very good infrastructure, and in terms of mobile data usage, we're also leaders in the EU and OECD. And actually, we're one of the pioneers in implementing 5G and IoT technologies and testing smart city technologies recently. So the value added is growing, and during the last few years, this value added is growing at a pace of 10%. and exports are also growing and reached 1.2 billion euros recently, and number of ICT professionals right now is around 37,000 employees, but we see that during the pandemic there are more people shifting into the ICT industry, so we believe that the number of specialists will continue to grow since there is a huge demand on the market for IT professionals. Briefly about the availability of office space. Here we talk more about the capital city Riga, and we see that there is an upcoming boom of new developments. In total, there will be around 170,000 square meters of new developments in the next 2 years. A-class office projects in very nice locations, and what is more important, that the rent rates are way much lower than in many capitals around Europe, including Western and Eastern capitals like Warsaw or Prague. So you can get a very nice office space for a very low price. And because of the new projects that are coming up and the existing average vacancy of 12% for A and B class office space, it will be a tenant market, meaning that new companies or new tenants will be able to bargain for a better deal and get really good maybe pricing or conditions for renting an office space. Well, our agency have worked pretty well during the last few years. We have attracted a lot of international companies, and we assisted them to expand here in Latvia. They're mostly coming from European countries, Northern Europe traditionally, but also we're proud to say that in 2020 we have doubled the FDI inflow compared to 2019, and the number of workplaces that will be created will be twice more than it was in 2019. So we are always welcoming new companies, and what is also important besides business is that we're located next to the seaside, and you can always have kind of a refreshing walk next to the sea or see the nature within 20 minutes ride outside of the city. So we're always welcoming new companies and supporting existing investors and existing Latvian companies to expand. So you're very welcome to come on board of Latvia, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. I will be happy to assist and provide additional information.